scores majestically.
Oh my word! Fabulous!
Oh, what a strike that is. Simply spectacular.
Oh, it's an absolute beauty, isn't it?
The best goal of the night.
It all starts here.
Hello and welcome to this week's show. As always, we'll be looking back at all the action from the National League, as well as looking ahead to the fixtures this week. Erin, it was a very busy weekend in the National League. It feels like the only right place to start is Barnet Football Club have actually lost the game.
I know. It's.
Can't believe it.
I don't think anyone was expecting them to lose this game, but I'm sure last week when we spoke about the fixture, we said that it was one that was going to be difficult. Now, you have to just take your hat off to Braintree. You know, they've gone toe to toe with the champions elect and come out victorious. I think that it was just a slight blip from Barnet, but what Dean Brennan will be hoping and making sure, I'm sure, is that that little blip doesn't go any further than that 1 week. You know, they're so close to the finishing line now, and it's just a case of staying concentrated and they'll be promoted.
Braintree have made their home ground a very difficult place for clubs to go and play. You look at the pitch, it's, of all the stadiums in the National League, they've come from the National League South. It's not like your Oldhams or your Barnets. They've made it a fortress.
Yeah, they have, especially of late. I think just as the season's gone on, they've just grown in belief. You've had some standout players. Obviously the Lisby brothers both being there has helped kick on, and they're just in a good place. They've got a real belief around the camp. They play on the front foot. They know that they've got the ability to go and score goals and cause problems, and they showed that against Barnet, and got a deserved 3 points.
You touched on it there, the Lisby brothers. The link-up's been fantastic, but it's going to stop now as Kyrese goes back to Colchester, which proves that the loan system works because he's come in and made a real impact, and Colchester have noticed that when we want him back. I feel like he's done enough, though, for Braintree to stay up this season. They can start looking ahead to next season. Yeah,
well, I think that it was a masterstroke in bringing him in the first place. We spoke about Kyrell potentially being the one that goes into the Football League. Braintree were proactive, went and brought Kyrese in. And as you say, the two of them had been absolutely magnificent in that short spell that they were both there. But Kyrese goes back to his parent club in Colchester now. And I think Braintree have done enough to be able to see themselves over the line and secure, National League status for next season.
We've got a couple of comments from social, starting with Barnet. Score Lamb says, we've been on an amazing run. Hopefully this is just a blip. And a Braintree fan, Peter, says, amazing result today, boys, and well played. That stung the bees. Nice little cliche there. Talking of teams that have lost games, we saw Barnet lose their first game in a long time. Gateshead finally won a game after a very, very poor run of form.
Yeah, and they needed it. I think that Dagenham was probably the best game that they could have had. After losing 6 games on the bounce, and they come up against Dagenham, who they lost 7-1 to earlier on in the season. But Dagenham are in a poor place at the moment themselves, and for Gateshead to get that win, they'll be hoping that they can now build on that. They're still within touching distance of finishing in that 4th or 5th place, which would mean that they'd get a home draw in the eliminators. So I think that's what they'll now be targeting. If they can now just finish the season off well and then set themselves up so that once the playoffs start, they're in a good vein of form.
We were worrying about Dagenham and Redbridge, and now the table's not looking great for them. How do they turn things around going into the final few games?
It's difficult for Dagenham. It's going to be difficult. They're now in the bottom 4. When you look at the form of the likes of Boston, the likes of Wealdstone, who are, starting to move away, the form Boston have been in is absolutely outstanding. So Dagenham will be looking and knowing that really they just need wins now. They've been difficult to come by, and they'd had a little run of 3 games where they'd won 2, drawn 1, and you might have thought, right, they can now start to pull away. But that defeat to Gateshead has put them right in trouble. And yeah, it's just about how they react to that now. Actually being in the bottom four and being, talk about it is two different things. When you actually see it in black and white, it's a difficult position to be in.
Yeah, well, this is what Gateshead Luke Hannant said. He said, much needed performance and win. More like the Gateshead we all know first half. And second half, we grinded out the win. Big last push. Wealdstone, again, they've put on a great run of form lately. And then to get a victory against Forest Green Rovers, who themselves look destined for the playoffs. Obviously, they're battling out with York for second and third. It looks like they're going to get third. But for Wealdstone, a huge win.
Yeah, massive win for them. I thought that the game against Boston was a must-win game for both teams. They came out victorious, but to be able to go and back that up with a victory against Forest Green was, more than most would have expected, and that's now really put them in the driving seat to stay in the division. There's still a little bit of work to be done, but they've shown in patches that they've got the capabilities to go out and get victories, not just picking up points, because I think at the bottom of the table, it's about victories. It's about making sure that you can get those 3 points.
We talk about momentum every week, especially as we get closer and closer to the playoffs. If you're in the dressing room at Forest Green Rovers, I'm not going to say they haven't got anything to play for, but they know where they're pretty much going to finish. How difficult is that to then start the momentum of going into the playoffs, like winning?
Well, it's very difficult. At the moment, they're not in a good run of form. I think it's something like 2 wins in the last 10 or 12 games. That is not promotion form at all. And once you get into the playoffs, it is those one-off games, but you want to go in there full of confidence. They were one of the favourites to win the division. They've fallen off massively. Now York have kicked on, and now York have created a separation between them. It's not easy it's not like a light switch where you can just switch your form on and off. You go onto the pitch, and when you're winning games, you feel confident. Your strikers feel like they're going to score goals and create chances. Defensively, when you're keeping clean sheets, you go out there and you have a real belief about you. There doesn't seem to be that at the moment. And teams going and playing against Forest Green, there's not that fear factor that there maybe was at the beginning of the season. So it's going to be important that in this final run-in, they try to get a bit of momentum, because if they don't, it's going to be a difficult playoffs for them.
Yeah, there's plenty of belief in the Wealdstone camp from their supporters. Jeremy Albert says, Warriors and Heroes, brilliant result against all the odds again, up the stones. And speaking of Warriors and Heroes, Boston, the great escape that we spoke about 3 or 4 weeks ago, is it on? It's very much on.
Oh, it's definitely on. 6 wins out of the last 7 games is magnificent. I've been so impressed with what they've been doing there. And even when you look at Wednesday's result against Aldershot, I know that they're both in different places. Aldershot are in a cup final and safe in the middle of the table. But there was just that will to win, that desire to make sure that we go out and we get maximum points. And now they've got that 3-point cushion from Dagenham, just above the drop zone. The form that they're in, they could go on and finish 4 or 5 places higher than where they are.
Your old team, Aldershot, obviously it was a massive weekend for the football club. Do you put that result, losing at home to Boston 2-1, down to a bit of not a literal hangover necessarily, but just the jubilations of going to Wembley to then back to reality, grinding out a result midweek?
Yeah, a little bit. Listen, like I say, in terms of the league, Aldershot aren't going to go and get in the playoffs. They're not going to get relegated. So
all eyes on Wembley.
It's just about making sure that you stay fit so that you're able to play at Wembley. And the difference in mood in the 2 camps, Boston, it's all about making sure that we win this game. We have to get 3 points. We have to move away from the relegation zone. So I think just in terms of the mindsets, Boston probably wanted to win it more. Not saying that the Aldershot lads didn't, but I just think that Boston wanted that 3 points more, and they got it.
Yeah, Goy Matthew on socials for Boston says, well deserved against a team that have not been beaten at home for a while. Never say never, keep going. So the fans are right behind Boston as well, as you would expect. Woking here on the end of that disappointing afternoon, and I'm sure we'll talk about that red card and what should never have been a red card and rightly rescinded. But for them to follow up that game, the disappointment of not reaching Wembley, to then go and win away from home, is massive for their season because they were still in with a shout of relegation.
Yeah, huge 3 points for them. You know, it's the exact reaction that Neil Ardley would have wanted from his team. You know, at one point I thought this could be a tricky end. I was speaking to Craig McHale-Smith just the other day, and he said, "Look, you know, we're very much in a dogfight here. You know, we know that we now need to pick up some maximums to stay in this division." So they're fully aware of what they need to do. But to go and get the 3 points, Walker has now started scoring, which is brilliant for them. He's a very, very good player. It's just about him finding that consistency. But he's now been on the score sheet more regularly. And for Woking, it's just about making sure that they can survive so that they can build for next season. You know, we know what a good manager Neil Ardley is. I have no doubt that he'll do brilliant things with that squad. But this season, it's just about getting away from danger, and then they can start to look forward and a brighter future for them.
Well, one team that couldn't get over the line are Weymouth. They have been relegated from the National League South after a 4-1 defeat against playoff chasers Eastbourne Borough. But coming up later in the show, we look ahead to the fixtures coming this weekend in the National League.
When the lights shine bright and you've made the lonely walk, the roar of the crowd fades, the cage door locks. It's just you and them, face to face.
Fight!
But DAZN is always in your corner. Setting the stage for greatness. Elite MMA on DAZN.
Greatness comes to DAZN this summer. The world's best players will be summoned together to decide the greatest club on earth.
Vinicius, great chance to score.
Goats will battle Wonder Kids. Fire will meet ice. From Boca to Bayern, PSG to Palmeiras, 32 clubs from across the globe will compete to be crowned
Rodrigo. What a strike that was.
world champion. And this summer, Haaland won't be watching from home, but you can, on DAZN. In every country in the world. FIFA Club World Cup. Watch on DAZN from the 14th of June.
DAZN is the global home of women's football. Let's go! Bringing you the best live games.
On my team.
With the biggest stars battling it out in the biggest competitions.
Cue the chaos. First blood in the title decider. Would you believe it? Goodness me.
Witness every season-defining moment.
The stuff of champions.
Live and on demand. Only on DAZN.
Everyone here at National League 72 expresses our deep condolences to the family and friends of Dorking Wanderers youngster Isaiah Smith. Our thoughts go out to you at this difficult time. There is never a dull weekend in the National League, and this weekend's games are set to be another cracker. Let's start with the doubleheader. Barnet versus Wealdstone. Barnet will want to put what went wrong at the weekend against Braintree to right.
Yeah, definitely. You know, it's just about reaction now for Dean Brennan and his side. So close to the finishing line, so close to be crowned as champions and, you know, moving into the Football League, that after a disappointing result against Braintree, they'll just want to make sure that they get back on the horse.
And Wealdstone, it will just be get what they can, because we know that despite losing at the weekend, Barnet is still unbeaten at home for a very, very long time.
Yeah, listen, I'm sure that they're under no illusions that it's going to be a difficult game, but, I think the Willstone-Dean Brennan rivalry is always raging, and the fans will be desperate for them to go and get a victory over Dean Brennan's side. For Gateshead, they need to back up the good result at the weekend. And for Forest Green, it's just about getting momentum. It's about getting some confidence back into the players so that they can go into this final stretch in good mood.
York City versus Aldershot. We've spoken about how the Shots, one eye on Wembley now. They can't go up, they can't go down in terms of reaching the playoffs. But for York, they've really found some form, especially with our man Ollie Pearce, who is now the joint leading goal scorer across 5 top English divisions, alongside Mo Salah, which for him is absolutely brilliant.
They're back in the swing of things. They've won the last 3 in a row, scored 10 goals in that time. Ollie Pearce has scored in every game. They're now back to where they were. They had a period of indifferent results, but now you can see that they've now found their rhythm again.
That victory midweek for Woking against a big team like Oldham will give them so much confidence going into a game that arguably is more important winning that one than it was midweek. You want to do both, and if they can do both, that really leapfrogs them outside of relegation, puts a bit of a safety blanket between them and the others.
Yeah, well, it's a huge game. For Woking, if they win that then drags Solihull in and around them. For Fylde, it's a must-win.
Yeah,
for Fylde, they need to try and find a way to climb out of that bottom 4. At the moment, they're bang in the middle of it, and things are looking bleak. They've just not been able to put any kind of sustained run together. As soon as they get a victory and you think, right, can you build on this? They then go and lose 2 or 3. And then they'll get a good victory, and then they go and lose. So from now to the end of the season, it's just about, can we get some wins? Can we grind it out? And it's going to be a difficult game for them, but it's one that they need to win.
Yeah, it's a tough ask to stay in the National League. On more positive news, the FA Trophy semi-final weekend was an absolute cracking set of fixtures. Rochdale versus Spennymoor and Woking travelling to Aldershot. The biggest news, obviously, for Spennymoor, National League North beating Rochdale on penalties to send them to Wembley Stadium. Their manager had this quote: "I'm so proud. I've got tears in my eyes. My son and daughter were crying with me on the pitch. I carry my dad's ashes in my pocket every single game. I kept kissing them today. I'm going to sprinkle them at Wembley." Football is amazing, and it can bring up moments like that will remember fans and family, friends. They'll remember that day in history for the rest of their life.
Yeah, it's more than football. It's you look for moments just in life in general. Those standout moments that will live with you for the rest of your life, and that is, when he gets to spread his father's ashes at Wembley. That will no doubt be one of the most amazing moments in him and his family's life. So, huge credit to Spennymoor. Very difficult game against Rochdale, and Rochdale will feel that they've dropped the ball there, because you're playing against a team from the division below, and they were favourites to win it. But full credit to Spennymoor, to their coaches, to their players, to their fans. They've got an amazing occasion to look forward to at Wembley, and they'll feel that they can go there and win it. I've no doubt that they'll go there full of confidence. After beating Rochdale, who are higher ranked than Aldershot, they'll believe that they can go there and cause an upset.
You know what it's like to win the FA Trophy. Just give us a little insight into your experience in that final.
Well, yeah, it was amazing. We played Woking in the final, just to add salt to the wounds. But we played them in the final. And we went out, we knew that we were a good team. My Grays team then was littered with quality. Dennis Ollie, Michael Kitely, Glenn Paul, Johnny Martin, Stuart Fergood. We were littered with good players. And we'd kind of underachieved a little bit in the league campaign. But going into that final, we knew we were going to win that game, and ended up winning it 2-0. And to lift that trophy, that was my first taste of cup silverware. I'd had promotions with, Aldershot and with Grays, but that was my first real piece of silverware where I'd worked throughout the season to win it, and it's just a fantastic occasion, and one that, you know, you go down in the history books of the club.
Right, there is a new club tournament coming this summer, and you can watch every game live on DAZN.
Greatness comes to DAZN this summer. The world's best players will be summoned together to decide the greatest club on earth.
Vinicius, great chance to score.
Goats will battle Wonder Kids. Fire will meet ice. From Boca to Bayern, PSG to Palmeiras, 32 clubs from across the globe will compete to be crowned
Rodrigo, what a strike that was.
world champion. And this summer, Haaland won't be watching from home, but you can on DAZN. In every country in the world. FIFA Club World Cup. Watch on DAZN from the 14th of June.
Do not miss an incredible double-header this Saturday as table toppers Barnet face the resurgent Wealdstone live on DAZN from 12:15. And then Forest Green take on Gateshead in what could be a precursor to the playoffs come May. It's live on DAZN from 5:15. Also catch all the goals and action from this week's round of the National League with our highlight show, exclusively live on DAZN every Sunday from 4 p.m. and now available on our YouTube channel. Head to youtube.com/DAZN Sport. As the battle for playoffs and relegation reach their conclusion, DAZN will bring you a very special multi-match live on Easter Monday, April 21st. If you haven't seen the show, where have you been? Here's a little taster. Good evening and welcome to Multi-Match Live.
Here on DAZN, we bring you all the goals, action and drama from tonight's National League games.
You can't beat the National League on DAZN. Wildrig is frozen.
You know I can't play bad for you, Maka.
Who said be a manager? It's not good.
Oh, it's a wonderful goal.
It's live football. There's nothing better than watching.
We're rolling, baby! I'm running out of superlatives to describe how incredible this Barnet team is.
Dorking Wanderers gaffer Mark White.
The 6 teams still playing for automatic promotion.
The Braintree game, you get some serious rocking.
That is absolutely incredible.
Nick Horton delivers again. Pierce takes the shot. And he's in! Ollie Brilliant has done it!
Join us for Multi-Match Live on Monday the 21st of April on the home of the National League, DAZN.
Okay, there's only one place to finish up. Football is nothing without the fans, and the Southend Shrimpers have gone above and beyond at the weekend. This is arguably my favourite story. 150 Shrimpers rented out a boat to go along the Thames to their game against Sutton United. And on that boat was a young American lad who thought he was going sightseeing and ended up on the boat with the fans. They took him to the game, made him an adopted Shrimper and gave him the best day out. They are the stories that we absolutely love, aren't they?
Oh, it's brilliant. And that just, you know, not only football, but sport in general, just has the ability to just bring people together. You know, I'm sure that the lad thought, what on earth am I doing here? Because you know what those Southend fans can be like when they're in full voice. But, you know, the story is great. They brought him in and they've now added another Southend fan to their ranks.
But even before you've got the fan there as well, I love the idea of renting a boat to go along the Thames to get to the game. That in itself is a brilliant story.
Yeah, well, it's different. It's different and it's an experience. And listen, you're always looking, how do we spice things up? How do we make it an experience as opposed to just going to and from the game? So yeah, full credit to the Southend lads and fair play to the lad as well for joining in.
Yeah, you could hear the chants in the crowd. Evan is a Shrimper. So if you did wonder what that was, well, there you go. You know the story now. And the club have invited Evan to the next game as well against Solihull. So that is why we absolutely love non-league. Right, that is it from us here at National League 72. We'll see you next time. Good evening and welcome to Multi-Match Live.
Here on DAZN, we bring you all the goals, action and drama from tonight's National League games.
You can't beat the National League on DAZN. Wildrig is frozen.
You know I can't play bad for you, Maka.
Who said be a manager? It's not good.
Oh, it's a wonderful goal.
It's live football. There's nothing better than watching.
We're rolling, baby!
I'm running out of superlatives to describe how incredible this Barnet team is.
Dorking Wanderers gaffer Mark White.
The 6 teams still playing for automatic promotion.
The Braintree game, you gave me some serious rocking.
That is absolutely incredible.
Nick Horton delivers again. Pierce takes the shot.
Join us for Multi-Match Live on Monday the 21st of April on the home of the National League, DAZN.